about how the Benghazi attack impacted U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East and what it did to kind of change the U.S.'s way of approaching things. A bit of background information to kind of help set the stage and kind of draw a bigger picture of what was going on at the time and try and help you to understand why things sort of happened the way they did. All right, so the year is 2012. Around this time, so like 2010, 2012 to like 2013, 2014, we have something called the Arab Spring going on. And what the Arab Spring is the Arab Spring is a series of various revolutions that kind of unrest, protests, you name it, kind of swept across the Middle East and forced change in various countries. And there's a couple other countries where the Arab Spring ended up, I guess, having an impact to some degree would be Egypt and Syria. Egypt, there did end up being some sort of change in government that happened, whereas with Syria, not much really happened, unfortunately, due to various underlying circumstances. But in Libya, Muammar al-Gaddafi, who is at the time the dictator of Libya, is deposed by rebels who wanted him out. And the rebels wanted him out so badly to the point where they refused to do peace talks in any form unless Gaddafi agreed to step down. And Gaddafi ended up getting killed. So when Gaddafi is killed, there's a democratically elected government which ends up replacing him. But this democratic government kind of lacks any sort of legitimacy and popular consent from all the different tribes in the area. And what this leads to is the government basically has no sort of power or authority, and they can't really do anything. And because they can't do anything, what happens is the government collapses and becomes nothing but really a figurehead that's just kind of there to look nice and doesn't really do anything important. And because of this lack of sort of a central power and authority, what happens? Power vacuum is created. And what happens when you have a power vacuum? You're going to have people who try and capitalize on it, and they're going to roll in and basically try and take what they can and move on. So, again, all sorts of groups wind up rolling into Libya. So if you're just general opportunists, people who just kind of want to get their piece of the pie, so to speak. Soldiers for hire or mercenaries who basically, hire themselves out to the highest bidder and kind of fight for basically whoever. And unfortunately, terrorist groups and terrorist affiliates end up rolling in, and as we'll see in just a little bit, this ends up leading to something bad. So Benghazi and its impact. So just a few months after Gaddafi is deposed, it's September 11th, 2012. And a large reason why this date is important is because it's 11 years after September 11th, and this date was chosen on purpose by the Al-Qaeda affiliate that ends up attacking the U.S. what used to be the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. And during the attack, Ambassador Chris Stevens, who was the U.S. ambassador to Libya, and along with him, 3 others are also killed in the attack. And not only are they killed in the attack, but the consulate is more or less totally abandoned, because if it's attacked once in an area, it's just going to get attacked again if you move it to somewhere else in the country. So, to my knowledge, I don't know if we still have an ambassador to Libya, just because it's still a relatively unsafe country. But instead of, Al-Qaeda affiliates, we're still remnants of ISIS and ISIS-K, and just other terrorist groups, which otherwise make the country incredibly unsafe for Americans. And after the attack, an investigation was launched by Congress into how the attack occurred, what sort of various vulnerabilities in the consulate's defenses allowed the attack to be executed, how the attack was planned, who did the attack, and just other various aspects. And this investigation ended up leading to, the major impact or takeaway, you could say, of the attack, is that it ended up forcing the U.S. to change the way it approached intervening in countries in the Middle East and also around the world to some extent. Because originally, before the attack, the U.S. intervened with the idea of responsibility to protect. And all that means is the U.S. its allies and NATO to some extent too have a responsibility to protect various human rights in countries around the world. So if they feel that a country is, committing like human rights crimes and potential crimes against humanity, they feel that they have a responsibility to go in and protect that country's citizens from their leader. So, like, I guess some of the things that could be violated: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and so on. And what happens is, because of the way they went in and went about intervening in Libya to, I guess, depose Gaddafi, it basically completely and utterly destabilized the country to the point where they can't really, the country just becomes a mess. There's just no sort of sense of order or law or just anything there. And what happens is that this causes, like, again, the U.S. has to reevaluate how it would want to intervene in a country. And it's like, okay, because of the fiasco that happened in Libya, we have to kind of look at how we're going to intervene in other countries. And we're going to have to, next time we intervene in a country, we're going to have to do it in a way that has a plan in place to keep the country from falling apart like Libya did, and helps to keep it stable and give a sense of order and law, and properly train the new government and its any sort of security forces to keep the country from falling apart. For the presentation, I hope you learned a bit, and yeah, that's all.